Hello everybody, I hope that you are well. My name is Christiane and welcome to my channel Backpacking Bananas. This is not a video that I usually make. However, over the past 12 weeks, I have lost over a stone and I am super proud of myself. Losing weight for me was something that I always found really difficult in the past, but I feel like something just clicked with me in these last 12 weeks. I have been documenting the whole thing in my Summer Glow Up series, which you can find on my channel. But I just thought that now that it has ended, it would be really nice to do a Q&A answering all of your questions that you may have about the Summer Glow Up journey, sharing things that have worked for me, and hopefully it can help you guys if you are wanting to do something similar. So firstly, what were your goals and did you achieve them? What I said on week 1 was that my goals were to lose weight between 5 and 10 kgs. And yes, I did achieve that. In 12 weeks, I lost 8.5 kgs. I started my journey at around 75.5 kgs, maybe 76. And right now I am 67 kgs. And my other goal was just to get fit. I had a few things that I was measuring and I'm very proud to say that yes, I absolutely did achieve on that front. I was doing a 5K every week and I shaved 3 minutes off my 5K PB. At the start of the 12 weeks, it was just under 30 minutes. And on my latest one, it was just under 27 minutes. I was also documenting my zone 2 pace. I think at the start that was averaging around 7:15, 7:20 minutes per kilometer. And now it's around 6:40, 6:45 minutes per kilometer. So I've shaved around 30 to 45 seconds off that pace, which I'm super happy with as well. What was my game plan and did it work? I said that I was not going to calorie count and I didn't for the first couple of weeks, wasn't seeing any changes. But then I did start calorie counting just for a bit and I'm so glad that I did, because I do think that if you want to lose weight, you need to be in a calorie deficit. It's important to understand calories and roughly how much calories are actually in things. I said I was going to eat a balanced diet and this I think I was very good at sticking to and it did wonders for my health. I said I was going to increase my protein. This I did and that was great. I said I was going to reduce my carbs and that I also did hugely, because I basically lived off carbs before and I think that that contributed massively. I said I was going to have treats only once a week, specifically iced caramel lattes, bag of sweets, chocolate bar, and a big cheesy bowl of pasta. And whilst with those specific things, yes, I did stick to that. I did fall into traps of other ways in which I could indulge, which definitely hindered my progress at times. But that was also me enjoying my summer, so I don't really have any regrets. And the last thing in my game plan was to drink more water, and I improved, but I'm still very shit at drinking more water. That is just going to be a constant thing that I'm trying to do. What was your exercise routine during the Summer Glow Up? So I had a running plan with my Garmin coach, which had me running 3 to 4 times a week. There was no specific milestone I was working towards. It was just to get fitter and improve my 5K time. I joined Pure Gym and I was taking myself to the classes at least 3 times a week. I would go to Pure Gym Pump, I would go to GLC, and I would also go to the core classes as well. And then about once a week I would do a HIIT class either at Pure Gym or at Barry's. About once every other week I would try to take myself on a big hike, and every Saturday morning I would do the park run, which is a 5K race. So I was basically trying to beat my 5K time every single Saturday. How did you first get into running? Well, I was always a sprinter growing up, but I was always really shit at middle distance and long distance. But in 2021, kind of still COVID lockdown times, I decided to start Couch to 5K, which is the best way I can recommend to anyone to get into running. And after that, I never really lost my ability to be able to run a 5K. However, over the years of not training consistently, I did become very slow. And at the start of this year, my 5K time was like 35 minutes, but now with consistent training, it's now at 27 minutes. How does the park run work? So the park run originated in the UK, so we have loads and loads of events in the UK, but it is elsewhere in the world as well. They are a free event every single Saturday morning. It's run by volunteers and it's funded by sponsors. And basically it's just a 5K track that you can run, you can walk. A lot of them you can take your dog or push a buggy. I sometimes see these men running with their buggies at like super speeds. Anyway, anyone can register and it's completely free to register on the website. It takes like 5 minutes and they email you a barcode. And in order to partake in an event, all you need to do is rock up, with your barcode. I just have mine on my phone, but some people have them printed out on cards. You can also get parkrun merch with your barcode on. You don't need to tell anyone that you're rocking up at any event on any given day. You just rock up at the time that that event starts. They set everyone off at the same time and start the timer at the same time. And then you do the loop. And then when you get to the finish line at the end, one of the volunteers is going to be timing your finish. Another volunteer will be giving you a small card with a barcode on and your place. You're then going to look for the people which says barcode scanning. You're going to go to them. They're going to scan that barcode that you've just been given with your place on it. And they are also going to scan your personal barcode, which may be on your phone or wherever you've brought it. They are then going to marry those two barcodes together so that later on that day, your parkrun time result is going to be emailed to you, and it's also going to be on the website. You can also see literally all the stats that you could possibly dream of for that run. There is also an app. It's literally just called 5K. If you type into the App Store 5K Park Run, you put in your profile and it basically just has all your details there for you. It also has your barcode inside of the app, and it also has literally all of the parkrun events in the world. So right now I'm in Australia. Where's the UK? Look how many are in the UK. There's so many, and on the app you can find out details like where it is, about the route itself, how many runners normally go to that event, what time the event starts. It's super useful for when you're planning where you're going to go as well. And that's it. That's how the parkrun works. I am a big fan of the parkrun. I was trying to go to a new location every single week, and I'm a big fan of this app as well. Do you think that you will continue with the parkrun? Absolutely. I've become obsessed, and I can't believe that I had never done it up to the point of the Summer Glow Up series. They do have a bunch of parkruns in Australia, and they have them in Perth as well. Actually, my very first parkrun, I was in Perth, so I did it here. So I want to go to a bunch of all of the others. And yeah, I want to make it part of my weekly routine. I think it's the perfect opportunity to try and beat my 5K PB every week as well, because I know if I'm just running by myself, I will have no motivation to really push myself for a PB. Whereas if you're running with other people and you've got people like cheering on the sides as well, you're running alongside people, it just makes you push so much harder and run so much faster. So I think that's a really nice opportunity. Which parkrun has been your favorite? There's been so many good ones. I did the Bushy Park parkrun, which is the original location, and there was over 2,000 runners, which was quite insane to be a part of. It literally felt like the London Marathon. But also there was a parkrun I did. It was called Squaries Winery. And I had no idea that there was even a winery in that region. And also that parkrun that particular day, I was by myself. It was pouring down with rain on the way there. I didn't know if it was going to be cancelled, but it wasn't cancelled. And everyone showed up, and I was just running through these vineyards, people giving each other high fives. It was wet on the ground. And also because that was one of the ones which I had brought myself there, I was just feeling like so proud of myself that like this is something that I've committed to each week. So I gotta say that's probably one of my favorites as well. What were your go-to high protein, low calorie meals? So definitely an omelette. I would do 1 egg and around 3 egg whites. I would do it with 1 vegetable, whatever I found in the fridge, normally broccoli, and prawns. That was very much a go-to like brunch lunch. And my other go-to meals were a chicken breast in the air fryer, 18 minutes, 180 degrees, flip it halfway. I'd have that with 2 to 3 steamed veggies. I would do a small amount of rice, and then I would just do a dollop of hummus on the side to give it a little bit of some summer. Homemade chili con carne in the slow cooker. I was also a big fan of the high protein meals from Lidl for the times where I didn't have time to make anything myself, and also the high protein desserts from Lidl. Best pre-run / workout fuel foods for energy but not feeling a simple humble banana 30 minutes before the workout, and also the protein Quaker oats that I got from Amazon before my Pakistan hiking expedition. They just come in small sachets. I will link them in the description. They're a fairly small portion, so they were amazing to have just like 30 to 60 minutes before a workout. How do you come up with your meal plan? So I've learned that the simpler, the better, and that it's okay to repeat meals day in, day out. At first, I felt like I needed to be having these different and interesting meals every day, but that is unrealistic. It's exhausting, and it's not sustainable on like the shopping food front, especially when I was just shopping for myself. I think it's good to try new recipes, but ultimately the core of what I made was just the same old meals that I knew. And bonus, if I could make a batch of it in the slow cooker and then just like freeze up individual portions, that made things so much easier as well. What has been the hardest food to cut out? I thought it was going to be cheesy pasta, But actually I found that one okay. At first, the hardest thing that I cut out was not having a big bar of chocolate after dinner each night. I would have the worst sweet cravings, which at first I would just suck it up, and I found that really, really hard. It was a huge mental battle every single night. But then with a bit of time, when I wasn't quite as strict on myself, I started having the high protein desserts from Lidl. I think they're like 150 calories or something. And I found that they totally satisfied my cravings whenever I had them. And it was a far better alternative than a big bar of dairy milk. What have been your struggles through the glow up? Adjusting to the eating at the start was definitely the biggest struggle for me. Combating my usual cravings just took pure, genuine discipline, and I hated that. Also, when my luteal phase would hit each month, it did make everything significantly harder. It would also affect my thoughts towards my body, which was quite disheartening as well. But you know, with that, I would always try to remind myself, this is just a phase, this is not lasting the whole time. And finally, whenever I traveled or whenever I was out with friends, I found it near impossible to stick to any of my glow up rules. And to be honest, that is probably the main reason as to why I didn't lose even more weight than I did. What sports bra do you recommend? Good question, because I have 34 double Gs and they like to knock about a bit, especially when I'm running. So the only bras that I have found that work for me and my boobies are the shock absorber high impact sports bras, running bras, and also the Sweaty Betty high impact sports bras. I will link both of them in the description if I can find them. But they are the only ones which I feel like I can truly wear. If you have similar sized boobies and you have recommendations for any more high impact sports bras for running, for jumping around, please let me know. I would love to know, because although I have found these brands, I would love to find more. Any apps that you would recommend? Okay, so I didn't actually speak about this during the summer glow up, but I used an app called Noom for 2 weeks. It was just during the free trial that I had for the app, and then I got rid of it. And actually, I would highly recommend that. I liked it a lot for really bringing awareness to what was in my food. They were talking about caloric dense foods, what foods you can have more of, what foods that you should have less of. It also just gave you little tips each day to help you with your mindset for sticking to a weight loss program and learning more about what your triggers are, what may be stopping you from losing weight, blah, 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 blah. And although it was kind of stuff that I felt like I already knew, it was good for my discipline to be reading that every single day. And I was actually tempted to go beyond the free trial, start paying for the app after those 2 weeks. But then I decided against it because it was quite expensive. I felt like I learned a lot in those 2 weeks and it had really put me on a good track. So yeah, I didn't actually talk about that in the vlog just because I didn't want to talk about it until I knew that it was something that I was actually enjoying using. But I do think it was good. My mum has always been phenomenal at losing weight when she needs to, and she swears by Slimming World. So that works for some. And then also a classic, MyFitnessPal is a great one to track calories. However, I do think with just these calorie tracking apps that there is a high risk of becoming unhealthily obsessed with it. And therefore, I personally would just always recommend using them as a tool at first to understand your calorie intake and to find out where you may be going wrong if you've never been able to kind of stick to a calorie deficit before. But then once you know the foods that generally can fit within your deficit, then it's not really necessary to keep going with it after that, at least in my opinion. What's the biggest change you saw in yourself other than the numbers? Do you feel differently inside? Yes, I definitely feel way more energetic, way less sluggish, and I find that the fitter I get, the more motivated I am to exercise even more. Exercising is so much more fun when you are fitter and lighter. I even just find working hard in general is easier and more enjoyable, and even sweating is just more fun and doable, and like, as opposed to sweating and feeling like, oh my God, this is horrible. I feel like the fitter I get, I can sweat and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a good feeling. I love sweating, which is such a weird change to go through. And the fact that I have managed to achieve my goal with this makes me feel very proud of myself and quite unstoppable, which is also a very fun feeling. How did you start without being unhealthily obsessed over the challenge and then crashing out? Okay, so hot take, controversial opinion. I think you need to be a little bit obsessed with it in the start to create habits. But even from the first few weeks, I allowed myself to indulge when I was going out for food with friends because I told myself that it was my summer and that I wanted to enjoy it. But I would use discipline to always snap back in. And that was hard. But I said to myself that indulging is only for when I'm going out. But then when I was at home, I ate healthy. No foods that were out of the plan were kept in the house, and that was a non-negotiable. So I think it was that balance that helped me to not crash out and actually give me something to look forward to. What's one thing you know now that you wish you'd known when starting this? So some of you may know that I've been doing a fair bit of research on biohacking, and it was only about halfway through this summer glow up journey that I was really reading up onto the importance of meal times and how that can affect your hormones, your metabolism, and your cellular repair. The idea being that you shouldn't snack, you should have space between each of your meal times and fast daily. Now that doesn't mean like a 24-hour fast, that can just mean like a 5-hour fast between meal times where you don't have anything, you give your gut a complete break. That includes liquids, smoothies, coffee. Like the only thing that you can have in between meal times is water. And I'll quickly go over why with the help of ChatGPT. Insulin regulation. Every time you eat, insulin rises to help process glucose. If you're constantly snacking, then your insulin spikes all day, which makes less time for your insulin to drop. Subsequently, chronically high insulin can lead to insulin resistance, weight gain, and metabolic issues. Fewer eating windows allow insulin to return to baseline, keeping metabolism flexible. Digestive rest. So digestion is energy intensive, and if you're constantly grazing, it keeps the gut on duty. But if you're pausing between meals, it gives the gastrointestinal system time to rest and repair. This supports better absorption of nutrients, a healthier microbiome, and reduced bloating. Autophagy and cellular repair. Fasting periods trigger autophagy, which is cellular cleanup, where damaged proteins and cells are recycled. If you're snacking all day, it prevents the body from entering this repair mode. So if you're doing these small amounts of fasting every day, this is allegedly a way to boost longevity, resilience, and lower your risk of disease. Metabolic flexibility. By not constantly feeding, the body learns to switch between glucose and fat for fuel. This helps burn stored fat efficiently and avoids energy crashes. People often report more consistent energy and focus. Hormonal balance. Fasting can increase the human growth hormone, which is linked to fat loss and repair. And meal spacing supports better circadian rhythm alignment, helping sleep and mood. And finally, just mindful eating. So no snacking forces you to eat intentional, nutrient-dense meals rather than grazing mindlessly. This often reduces calorie intake without feeling restrictive. When I started doing this, and like I said, it's not something that's super intense, I feel like that's when the weight started to drop off me a lot faster. And also, I just found it easier to stick to this routine as opposed to constantly searching for snacks. So I definitely wish I knew this from the beginning. It's something that's just so easy, which can make a huge difference. How have you maintained a positive and healthy relationship with food? So I have learned that having a healthy relationship with food is about balance, right? And I've never swayed on the end of not having enough food. But if I was, I would remind myself that first of all, food is fuel. If we want the energy to do the things that we love, we have to fuel our bodies well. Having an able body is such a privilege, and I would be doing myself a disservice to not give my body the fuel it needs to flourish. Now, the other end of the spectrum is to not have too much food and not to binge on unhealthy foods, which is the end that I more struggle with, hence the need to lose some weight. But again, I think it comes down to the respect that you have for your body and not only wanting to fuel it properly, but also to nourish it. This is the most woo-woo thing I will say today, but if it helps, your body is a temple. And surely I want to nourish my body with the best things for it, to maximize my energy, my gut, my strength, and to feel good. If I feed myself tons and tons of processed, sugary, fatty foods day in, day out, I'm not respecting my body at all. And as a woman who wants to have kids in the future also, although I'm not ready to get pregnant right now, I find it helps to think of myself as preparing my body for pregnancy. How can I create the healthiest environment possible to grow a living being inside of me? And not just any living being, my future child. Of course, I would want to give them the best chances of being as healthy as possible. And that may sound to some of you very extreme and over the top, but from a relationship with food standpoint, especially if it's something that you've been struggling with, I find that it really, really helps. In a way, it's similar to, have you heard how some people, when they need to clean their house, they pretend like they have been hired to clean their own house and how it's a job because somehow somehow we find it easier to do things for other people than we do for ourselves. And I think the same goes for here with eating. If you were feeding your toddler, likely you wouldn't want to give them Coke and McDonald's and sweets because you know that that's bad for them and you want to give them the best nourishment possible. So why don't we do that for ourselves? How did you stay motivated even when you really couldn't be bothered? Having things that hold me accountable. Booking gym classes, monitoring my Strava fitness score, recording my weight weekly for thousands of people to see, and just having a fitness schedule. This journey does not rely on motivation, it relies on discipline, but having things that hold you accountable makes it so much easier. I would book my exercise classes for 7 a.m. And I think even if you are super tired, but you've got that exercise plan, the least you can do is just something, even if it's just like a 30-minute walk. And often the hardest part is just getting dressed and getting out of the house, because the thought of doing a big exercise is making you go, oh my God, I don't want to do this at all. But if you say to yourself, okay, today I'm literally just going to walk for 30 minutes. So you get yourself dressed and you get out the house. And then when you start, you're like, okay, I could go a bit faster, maybe I could do something a bit more, and you can go from there. But it's so much better just to get yourself out of the house doing something. Steps are so underrated. Just get your steps in for the day and then you can go from there. But it requires discipline for sure. Will you continue the summer glow up in Australia? What habits will you take with you and what will you change? Are you happy with your results or are you going to keep getting in better shape? So on an aesthetic front, I am very content with the size that I am now. However, from a body fat standpoint, it definitely wouldn't hurt me to go a bit smaller, and that would allow for some more like guilt-free fluctuations in the future. I don't have a weight goal anymore, but I'm definitely going to continue trying to get fitter. So yes, in a way, I will be continuing the summer glow up, but I'm not going to be documenting it the way that I have over the past 12 weeks. But maybe I'll do a catch-up episode of like how I'm going in a few months' time. So the habits that I'm going to keep: high protein, low calorie eating with a balanced diet, whole foods and healthy foods being the priority, biohacking when possible, always eating healthy at home so that I can indulge when I go out. I've started a new Garmin Coach run plan, so I'm keeping up with the running 3 to 4 days a week. And actually, I've set myself a specific goal to run a half marathon in December with a time goal of sub 2 hours. I don't know if that's unrealistic, but that is what I'm gonna work towards. I'm gonna try and get in some weightlifting at least a couple of days a week. I've joined the gym here in Perth already, and the gym that I've joined has these reformer Pilates machines where you can do your own reformer Pilates workouts using a screen as opposed to an actual instructor, so I might give that a go. I'm going to continue doing the park run every week, and I'm going to try going to different locations every week as well. And I'm hoping also to start a new sewing masterclass again in October. Hoping, because it will depend on the job I get and if I actually have time to do it, basically. And habits that I will change, honestly, not much, other than I probably won't be weighing myself every single day, which has been useful during the summer glow up. But now that I'm not so focused on losing weight, I think a weekly weigh-in will be just fine, just so I'm somewhat regularly aware of it and making sure that I'm not falling back into old habits. If I am, then I know something needs to change. But yeah, that's basically it. I'll be continuing more or less the same as I was for the whole glow up, but maybe just not quite as strictly. As a traveler, will you be working out more during your travels? Well, one, I'm actually not going to be traveling so much now that I've moved to Australia. The whole point of me moving here was so I could chill out a bit on the travel front, settle down, live the Aussie lifestyle. But other than that, yes, absolutely. I think I've always been a pretty active traveler, but now even more so. I feel like when I go to places, I definitely want to prioritize making sure that I'm going for a run, a hike, maybe finding a local gym or a local HIIT class, making sure that I get some actual high intensity workouts in. I know it's not always going to be easy, but for sure I'm going to have it on my mind to try. Top 3 memories made because of setting out on this quest. Definitely the park run memories. In particular, when I was in Italy with Karen, we drove specifically to a park run in Rome on the Saturday morning, and there was only like 20 runners and it was so hot, and we even stopped in the middle because Karen needed to pee mid-march. park run. And then they gave us all Prosecco at the end. It was so good. And most of the park runs in the UK I did with one of my best friends, Cheryl. And it was just so fun. Every weekend we would drive to a new location where we would explore a new town, usually go to a new cafe afterwards. And that was just so, so nice. Learning to sew was definitely a highlight. I know that's not got anything to do with the fitness or the weight loss, but I did say that I was going to be glowing up all parts of me, warts and all, and the wart did get removed. But learning a new skill, learning to sew was awesome. I looked forward to that every week. And a third memory. Let's go with the Yorkshire Three Peaks Challenge. Hiking 40 kilometers over 1,600 or 1,700 meters of elevation is a big challenge. But I love these kind of big challenges, and also, like, you know, driving 5 hours to get there and camping in the Yorkshire Dales with Jade. Yeah, that was awesome. And the final question, what are my main takeaways / most useful tips? Controversial perhaps, but you need to be a bit obsessive and strict in your first few weeks in order to make healthy eating and exercise a habit. 2 to 4 weeks of strictness in order to keep going. Having never ever done that specifically previously is what I think prevented me from entering into any kind of weight loss phase previously. It is much easier to do this when you do not have a bunch of social commitments. So if you can start at a time where you are able to isolate yourself a bit, that I think is going to help a lot. Your weekly grocery shop is where it all begins. Before you go, plan your high protein, low calorie meals and shop only for those items. And everything else in your house that does not go along with those meal plans, get rid of it, throw it away, give it away. I don't care. Don't give yourself bigger temptations, bigger distractions if they are not aligning with your goals. If you have a big appetite like me, you absolutely do not have to have less than you normally have, but load up on veggies and lean protein. Completely fill your plate with it. Make yourself full. Just don't load up on the carbs and the fat and the sugar. If you are going to be running, have a run plan. Use an app. I use Garmin Run Coach. There's an amazing app called Runner, Couch to 5K if you're just getting started. There are so many apps to choose from. But if you choose one that actually gives you a schedule and says, like, this day you're going to be running, that helps massively. If you have a gym membership, book classes and book the morning ones if you can. They will get you out of bed, they will hold you accountable, and they will have you feeling great and super pleased with yourself for the whole rest of the day. Allow yourself to indulge when you go out to a certain extent, because that will be something that you can always look forward to and always give you a reason to snap back straight into the healthy eating afterwards. And finally, don't just glow up your body, but also learn a new skill or try something new. Doing this has made me feel like I've glowed up a lot more well-roundedly and not just focused on the way I look, but also had other things to show for it and gave me something to really look forward to each week. And that is it for answering all of your questions about the summer glow up. Thank you so much for asking them. Best of luck if you are starting your own summer glow up journey. I am so glad and so proud of myself that I have done this. It's the best thing that I've done for myself all year. I really should have done it sooner, to be honest, as opposed to letting myself get in the position that I did. And thank you so much for following along the whole glow up series. I've had some really positive and lovely comments from you all over the past of the 12 weeks. And I'm just so glad that it's been received in such a good way, because I know that losing weight in particular can be quite a taboo topic, but I think that being healthy and being in shape is very important. And I think if everyone was healthier versions of themselves, then the world would just be turning into a better place for many reasons. But that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.